have anything to live on the next week. And coming from the darkest hour, trying everything you've tried, they recognize game. And they fall in a position of disappointment and a lot of hopelessness, because if this is not the answer, I don't know what else is. And by us, the church, not keeping that bread fresh, sometimes they recover and sometimes they do not.
I think that was King's concern. I think part of his concern was the fact that the church would have to go and would go through with these people these dark hours, and that in the midst of it, they would feed them. And he breaks down this bread. He breaks down faith and hope. And so he continues to start talking about we have to stay in a ready position to meet these people where they are. And then to minister to them where they are. I mean, she said it adequately. I was in a broken state. And they ministered to me. That, like you said, on the flip side, if we don't, then they come. And we have nothing to feed them. Now theologically, and this is just mine, Christ then curses the fig tree because you saved it. You have the sustenance for life. So you lied to it. And so I came. Wrong season, it was everything. And when I came, so he curses this tree. And it does not grow ever again. So if you heard King's message, King talked about that God would be displeased, and that God would come. And we think that the church will always be. That's not necessarily true.
But do you think why people have decided not to, they just don't want to knock anymore, is because they have now identified that the bread is stale, molded?
Or that you don't have it. You don't have it. Yeah.
So why waste my time not?
There's statistical data that talks about donors. And y'all need to go and read the article about donors. And there's a book that's coming out, and it's about donors. D-O-N-E-R-S, donors. They're done with the church. No, they're not done with God, but they're done with church. And they're saying, that's that 30-something generation that's saying, I'm done with institutional religion in these churches. I'm not done with God. And that's a growing group.
What's the author?
I can't remember. I
Okay.
can't remember the name.
Okay.
He's supposed to be coming out with a book, but he's written an article. And it's been conversation concerning it, that there is a large group that's saying, I'm done with this. Okay?
Yes.
So, Professor, do you think coming from slavery, that church is there for the people, and you should feel like there's somebody?
Yeah.
And then it did, so at that point, I guess if you want a pastor or first lady, then they don't see you the same. It's almost like a class by itself of importance.
African American church history says it wasn't just the pastors. It was the deacons, mothers. The only place that they had real autonomy, authority was inside of this institution. And in some ways it got perverted. Okay. I want y'all to look at these two and then y'all out of here. Page 62 and 63. Page 62 and 63. Everybody there? Down at the bottom, last paragraph before the quote. See it? Wyman explained that the fact that God is not personal does not mean that he is impersonal. He is supra-personal. God towers in unique majesty infinitely above the little hills which we call minds and personalities. He felt that if he held that God is personal, he would place a limit on God. King understood Wyman and Tillich to be in accord in denying that God is personal, even though they affirmed that God is suprapersonal. He argued that when they view God as an entity of some sort which is lacking in consciousness or rationality, such a position never revealed whether an unconscious superpersonality is better or worse than personality. It would be better by far to admit that there are difficulties with an idea we know, such as personality, than to employ a term, suprapersonality, which is practically unknown to us in our experience. He concluded that Tillich and Wyman's conception of God were lacking positive religious value. Both concepts are too impersonal to express adequately the Christian conception of God. They provide neither the conditions for true fellowship with God nor the assurance of God's goodness. This critique not only revealed King's acceptance of the personalist conception of a provident God, but also implied his appreciation of the existential implications of such as acceptance for believers who have both the privilege and the obligation to seek fellowship with a God whose loving purpose directs them. So he's not just saying, I don't agree. He's telling you why. That's what I want you all to hear, okay? He has this personal, he has this existential. Now you need to understand, well, what does that mean? So now you go back and look at personalism and this existentialist influence on King, okay? And it's in there, folks. It's in the chapter. Questions? Questions? That's what I want you to read. It's a belief system. It's in there. How do I redirect you back to the church? I think that's why I want to teach this class so that you all can start teaching it. I think part of it is just that, is to say, not just that we have a day for him, but we start looking at his teachings. We start looking at how they apply in the 21st century. That's why I asked y'all this last question. Is it relevant today? What he was arguing. How so? How not so? And we're going to constantly come back to that question, folks. We're going to constantly come back. Is this relevant? For me, yes. An active church that is not only socially conscious, but starts to value human beings as human beings and God, and helping people to think out their faith and not just sit up in there and be emotional, but also not to get so arrogant. Like King said, wait a minute, hold on, don't think I don't believe that spirituality is important. Don't believe that I don't believe that we need to clap and celebrate. I believe that. But if that's all you had, okay, it's a whole lot more. Or, as you all were saying about this cold church, I go to games. You get in there and you sing these songs that drive folks up a wall. Or you got up there with some essay that the pastor got up. Look, I got it, okay? You educated and you went to school and you wrote a paper, but I got it, all right? It's not going to help me. It's not going to assist me. Okay, so part of it is how do we integrate this? How do we bring these two and marry them together? To the point that they have a meaning. Not just these two doing it. They have a meaning. Okay? Questions?